in the Valley, Serranos. For monthly specials, visit SerranosFurnitureGalleries.com. From the A to Z Insurance Studios in the Tower District, this is the Valley's new talk leader. Talk Radio 1680 KGED, Fresno.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Personalities in the News. This is a program to help educate you on some of the issues that are vital to your understanding and your way of life, and what can be done to improve it. Only when we get other views can we make intelligent choices regarding the decisions and options available to us for the enrichment and improvement of our lives. Good evening again. Truman Sigler for Personalities in the News. The show is dedicated to the memory of John Castle, who started this program in 1964, and it ran through 2003 on several local stations. I was fortunate enough to be tutored by John for about 10 years. John was a noted advocate of the constitutions and a Republican. The format of this program is educational in nature and based on the constitutions of the United States of America and the Republic of California, as well as special guests based on their topics being presented. The program today is about how the actions of attorneys and lawyers affect the outcome of justice and due process in our system. There will be time for call-in questions. We ask that you please keep them on today's topic. Call in at 442-1680, talk radio after the first break. The opinions of our guests and co-hosts and are limited and are based on legal court actions. The misuse of their training, lawyers and attorneys, by some of them, compromised our system of justice. Our guest today is Paul Ballard. He's been on once before, and he went into quite a bit of detail on his experiences. We're going to let him bring himself up to speed so that you, the viewing audience or listening audience, can know where we are in this topic for today. Steve Hempling, our co-host, will be coming in on Skype. He lives up in the mountains where there's even snow, I understand, and fires and all those kind of things. Sue Ann couldn't make it down. She also lives up in the mountains. Her mother is sick, and she has to take care of her, but she'll be on the phone, and she'll be talking about what she wants to talk about and her experiences with lawyers, courts, and some of the research that she does. And I'll be talking about mine if there is time. So welcome, Paul, to the show. Bring us up to speed.
Thank you very much, Truman, for inviting me down. This was quite an unexpected pleasure to be invited back to your show. One of the issues that I understand we're going to be talking about today is just lawyers and lawyers in general. And my life is, I'm 62 now, but my life has had lawyers involved with it since before I was born. I was a private adoption, and my parents, John and Wanda Ballard, went out and hired a law firm to find them a child back in the 1950s. Now, all of that was great and grand, and I came about, and all of that was done, but wouldn't you know, my mother decided she wanted me back, my birth mother, and so there were court cases about me at a very early age. I was retained with the family that adopted me, and I'm one of, I believe, 9 children, and I was not raised in a Cincinnati orphanage. I'm very happy, and I'm very pleased because of that. But at the same time, I grew up with what I was told was the truth, my truth, the truth that I know as myself. Then later on, when I became 18 and the laws had changed in California and I was able to do a little research onto my own historic family background, I started to dig in and find out. Well, I don't like the fact that the story that I was told and my parents, John and Wanda Ballard, were told was a lie. There was no reason to create the lie. No reason to protect the sanctity of the marriage of my mother, who had me out of wedlock. There was no reason to create a health record out of people that are not mine. Thank God I had not received a blood transfusion based on the medical records, because it probably or could have killed me or done damage. I am not related to the people that they claim I'm a product of. And these are the things that go on. All of these were done by lawyers, in some sense, goodwill or not, but to create an image of something that was better than reality in their minds, versus my personal experience now of life at 62 is life would be just better if we deal with the simple truth, good, bad, and ugly. Truman?
Yes, well, I think that is commendable. Do you have any updates on the status of your case that you want people to know?
The situation still in Leisure World is still as ugly as it ever has been in that sense, although there is something that has been coming up. Is there's a gentleman inside Leisure World who is a retired lawyer that lives there that has taken an interest on. He knew me when I was there, knew the family, and so he started to ask questions of various administrations and inside Leisure World, and interestingly enough, he's been given the indication that he needs to back off. I would warned him that he may be next, but they eventually came back with him as to why. The only thing that they've said is because they didn't like our dog. And I find this to be more, even though that's in the court record, in fact, one of the 4 issues was about Tanker. I don't know if you can...
You can see it on the screen.
See here.
Yeah.
Here is Tanker. Tanker has passed away now as of last year ago, October. He was a state licensed service dog. Here's his tag, his state licensing tag from the county. This was his name. But he served mankind and served my parents, served the community of Leisure World, chased coyotes away, in one particular case from an unarmed guard and a lady, an elder lady with her little pooch on a leash, and this coyote was hungry, and he went and chased him out of the community, and then jumped back into the car and sat there. A trained dog is very different than an untrained dog, and Tanker had earned his licensing through the state of California and has had numerous assignments over his life. We've lost a dear friend to humans, but the idea that they would once again, another set of lawyers or another set of people involved with Leisure World to come back with and say, well, we didn't like his dog. I would say that if those people would go in and read the transcripts, their own Leisure World plaintiffs stated that Tanker, even though they keep claiming Tanker was an unregistered dog, it was not mean he did not have his government licenses. It was that the Leisure World Golden Rein Foundation administration refused to honor them. And this is what's said in the transcript, and this is what's said actually in Judge Luehi's 4-page decision, is the plaintiffs themselves refused to acknowledge Tanker's licensing and never bothered to tell Mr. Ballard that they refused to acknowledge it. They just bring it up as a legal complaint.
I think you handled that the last time you were here in about the same detail. I try not to be repetitive.
All right.
If we can do that, because we only have an hour, and we could spend about 3 or 4 hours on these topics.
One of the things that I've noticed in my life in dealing with lawyers, and we've had, I'll just say, an unnecessary need for lawyers in our family life, is that I hear something too often, and that is a win is a win. And yes, we all want to win, but if this is becoming to the point of where we're just lying to win, then we've lost the point of our judicial system. And the also aspect is on civil cases. You don't have the right to a lawyer. You have a right to be able to afford one. Well, basically $300 an hour to $1,500 an hour or more. That's $3 million a year if you're a high-priced lawyer. And I'm very pleased that some firms such as DLA Piper have come to help represent me, because I couldn't afford $3 million a year in representation. But our system is being compromised because of the expense of legal representation just to be able to do the protocol inside the court system with their with their Latin-based terms, as well as rather unusual procedures which are considered standard of practice inside the law industry.
Well, I think a lot of that's based on the fact that, as the information you provided me, based on between 1951 and 1971, the increase in the number of lawyers rose over 350%. And, of course, it says here the ABA warned us about this, but they're part of the lawyer system as well as that. And I want to go into something that most people aren't aware of. Our government changed drastically in 1868. This is when the 14th Amendment was adopted. It created a new class of citizens. All men and women are created equal, as stated in the Constitution, a sovereign. Now became a person subject to the federal government, making everyone a U.S. citizen instead of an American citizen. Sue Ann will go into that because they can't put it on you without you volunteering in. It's like the income tax or the driver's license or any of that. It's all voluntary. And it creates a real problem. In 1871, the government formed itself into a corporation, pulling itself from under the Constitution. Now, how many people are aware of that? Was there an amendment to that Constitution that stated that? No, they just did it. In 1913, the Federal Reserve Central Banking was created as a private corporation. In 1933, a whole bunch of things happened. What happened in 1932? Who was elected president? Franklin Delano Roosevelt. To my way of looking at things after the research I've personally done, he was one of our first communists. Now, this is some of the things that he put into play. This is well documented. This is me just pulling it out of the sky and talking about it. In 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt put into effect the Trading with the Enemies Act. This applied only for federal citizens. Okay. In 1933, he also put in, he took the gold away from the people, although they were not required to give it away, leaving the people without money for paying their debts. In March 1933, the Senate Department number 43, the 73rd Congress session states, the ownership of all property is in the state. So-called individual ownership is only by virtue of government, that is amounting to a mere user. And we must be in accordance with law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. Have you read the Communist Manifesto? If not, I would suggest that you do so, because there are 10 planks on it, and they're all in force in this country right now. In also 1933, Roosevelt signed H.U.R. 192. Simply put, since the government had taken the gold, the people had no money, the government would pay their debts for the people. The dollar for dollar, thereby giving the people unlimited credit. That's a big downfall of this country. In 1938, the Erie Railroad Company versus Tompkins made contracts the rule in our courts. Contracts. And that was the starting of the proliferation of the lawyers back then. In 1946, we lost our government and courts through the Administrative Procedures Act. You don't get into the Article III courts. You are in a procedural court, not with a real judge, but with an administrator in a black robe to make you think he's a judge. In 1965, silver was taken away as a means for paying debt. The Uniform Commercial Codes were pulled together in Administrative Admiralty and Civil Commerce or Commerce Corporation. The act and intent was brought together, thereby taking away your plea of innocent. So now it's guilty until proven innocent. Have you not seen that in the news media here lately and what's going on around the country? It's changing the often quoted, you're innocent until proven guilty. We have the music in my ear, so it's time for a break. Mr. Engineer, take it away.
That was the primary difference between
In our
ourselves
lifetime,
and
only on the O'Reilly Update.
The O'Reilly Update, this Friday at 5 p.m. on Talk Radio 1680 KGED.
Free Enterprise Society exists to educate Americans about the importance of the U.S. Constitution. This is the formula, if you will, that made this country the greatest country the world has ever seen. We are not supposed to be like the rest of the world. You can get more information at my website. We're also funded by people like you. We have a membership. We can help you with some IRS problems. We also need donations and benefactors to continue this work. So if you want to abolish the income tax, check us out. If you have questions, feel free to contact me. But anyway, thanks for listening.
From the Pacific Justice Institute, this is The Legal Edge, defending your rights as a Christian, a parent, and a citizen. Here's Brad Dacus.
A federal judge overturned a rule from the Department of Health and Human Services that would have granted greater protection for healthcare workers to opt out of performing medical services like abortions that violate their conscientious rights. You see, the judge found the rule unnecessary, despite HHS claims of healthcare workers' rights being violated. Well, Pacific Justice Institute believes in the free exercise of religion and that no healthcare worker should be coerced to provide a service that conflicts with their genuine beliefs or conscience. If you find that your conscientious rights have been violated, please visit pji.org.
The Pacific Justice Institute provides legal representation to individuals without charge. Learn more at pacificjustice.org. That's pacificjustice.org.
Bill O'Reilly is back on the radio.
We're going to fight back.
And he's on Talk Radio 1680 KGED.
Let me just throw you my best shot.
The O'Reilly Update, weekday afternoons at 3:45. Talk Radio 1680 KGED.
Welcome back to Personalities in the News, ladies and gentlemen. We have Paul Ballard as a repeat guest here, talking on his run-ins with these, if you want to call them lawyers or charlatans or whatever suits you, whatever your interface is with them at the time. They are a big problem in our judicial system, which has been changed. You have to prove your innocence. So how do you prove a negative? Steve, you want to comment on that? Steve, we lost you. He's coming. There he comes.
Yes. In this country, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. That concept has changed a lot due to, I think, partly the media and also our education system. When you get charged with something, most people think you're guilty or you wouldn't be charged. You wouldn't be in court. The juries kind of think the same thing. And that's a sad state. But part of the, to me, it goes a lot further because the jury is supposed to be a jury of your peers. Peers are people that might know you, not family, but people that might know you, people that might be neighbors, people that might work for you or work in the same industry and be aware of you. But today you can't be a third cousin twice removed and be on the jury. And so you have a jury of complete strangers, and they have a very bad attitude on you. So, yes, I mean, you're right. We have to reinforce that concept. I mean, this is what I learned this in school. They're not learning that any longer in school. So.
That's true. When I went to school, I graduated in 1952, which means I'm a little older than you, Paul. I'm 85, moving on. But I had to, the class was given a choice to pick some part of government or a government or whatever and write a term paper on it. Well, I was listening to what some of the students were going to do, and it was all on the government at that time or certain aspects of it and some people. But I chose what was hot on the media at that time. You remember what was going on in 1952? That was the McCarthy things going on. Trying to make everybody a communist or say they're tied to it and so forth and so on. And it was the same thing that's going on now with a certain party in this country. They're doing the same thing. Secret hearings and so forth and so on. atrocious. So I wrote my term paper on communism. I didn't know anything about it. I wanted to learn. So I read as much as I could. It was available to us, and especially the 10 planks of the manifesto. And throughout my lifetime, up to this point, I've seen them for just one or two of the planks in there. They're all in there now, every one. And there's not a thing that you can do about it if you are going to work within their system. It doesn't work. They have too many lawyers, and they form all these other corporations. One corporation breeds another one, and they go on and on and on. So if you go to fight them, you're in a never-ending battle, and you're not going to win, as you have experienced. You won one battle, which was good. Then they got all the lawyers and all their legalese in, and they had it appealed, and you lost. But there is a remedy for that. I hope Sue Ann comes in pretty quick, because she's going to explain to you what you need to do. Fight this thing outside of their system.
Thank you.
In other words, you have to go on the offense. You can't be on the defense. You will get nowhere. How do I know? Been there and done that. I was arrested in sometime in the late 90s for practicing auto repairs without a license. And they took me to jail, sat there for 5 days, went through their Mickey Mouse trial as my own attorney. In other words, pro per. I didn't hire a lawyer because I knew enough to write motions and so forth and so on. So they presented their case, and I told the judge when it came my turn that I'm going to remove this to federal court because I was not happy with the way they were being presented. The prosecutor stood up and says, he can't do that. The judge says, well, what thinks you can do that? Well, I had the federal rules of court with me. Handed it to the bailiff. He gave it to the judge. The judge looked at the motion that I wrote, and he said, granted. The prosecutor jumped up and down and said, he can't do that, he can't do that. The judge told him to sit down and shut up, and that's the way it was. So I went to federal court, filed a motion for removal. About 3 weeks later, a federal magistrate contacted me. She was a new person on the court, so they're magistrates first, then they become a judge. And she sat me down, or I sat down, and she explained to me why she had to deny the motion. And you know what it was? The 14th Amendment. She told me, you claimed in your motion the 14th Amendment. So that made you a citizen of the United States for this particular action. So I have to deny it, and you'll have to rewrite it and come back in. So I went through the rest of the trial. They found me guilty, sentenced me to a fine and all this and that, just in front of a judge, not a jury. So I kind of learned my lesson. Went back to work, even though the judge told me I couldn't do it. And they come out and arrested me again a couple of years later. This time I had my smarts together. I wrote the motion to go back in and did not cite the 14th Amendment or anything that put me in as a U.S. citizen. But this time I said, I'm going to try it with a lawyer. So they appointed me a public defender. It was all fine and good. Well, I gave him my side of the case and all the legal ins and outs, and the fact that I was not required to have a license. It was a civil matter. Well, when the time came around to argue the case, he would not argue that. You have to remember, lawyers are officers of the court, okay? And if they don't do what the judge indicates them to do, next case they came up with, they're not going to get treated very well. So it's a closed system. Stay out of it. Jury found me guilty, this and that and everything else. And in the meantime, while this was going on, I was also doing John's show. We gathered the crew, the portable crew, went out to the Bureau of Automotive Repair, because the judge told me you have to get a license. So I walked in there. What are you here for, Truman? I'm here to get a license. Judge says I have to have one. Well, what kind? Smog and brakes or lights and so forth and so on? And I said, no, a mechanic's license. I was told there is no such thing as a mechanic's license. So I went back in. They still found me guilty. So then I turned around and sued the actors, all the people that did this, because they violated their oath of office and the law. I sued them individually. That's how you win, not suing the government or those people. Steve, you got a comment? My voice is getting raspy.
Well, what you're demonstrating is the power that the people in this country have. Under the Constitution of the United States, you, the people listening, really have all the power in this country. This Constitution is unlike any place else in the world. We're the only country where you, the people, have all this power. Now, some of you are thinking, well, no, I don't, because they're just running over me. They're doing it because the people, the boss, the people are not standing up like Truman did. You start standing up and they start, you can start to win. I'm director of Free Enterprise Society. You can look that up on the internet, freeenterprisesociety.com. We educate people also on the Constitution and their rights. The school systems does not seem to be doing this anymore. I mean, it's even a problem with one of the attorneys. They don't know jurisdiction. Now, I'm sure this program's talked about that before. You got military jurisdiction, you got this and that, but attorneys, a lot of them think they have jurisdiction over anybody and anything anywhere in the world, which couldn't be farther from the truth. But when you actually ask questions and maybe fight back a little bit, even on traffic tickets, a lot of people go in on a traffic ticket, get it dismissed, even if they don't even have a good argument, because they're wasting the court's time. They want to get on with making fines and things and making money. So, at least that was my experience in traffic court. You go in, and most courts have important things like law books and stuff sitting around, but the only thing that was in a traffic court was a calculator on the judge's desk to tell you how much you're going to pay before you leave.
That's the way it works.
And the door locked behind me when I came in, too, I noticed. So I had to go out this other door by this person with the cash register. Anyway, when people start standing up, you start getting things dismissed. I mean, because the county writes you up for things. There's a code enforcements. These are not constitutional issues. These are issues. In fact, when you start getting into code enforcement and the administrative rules of the county, you're starting to get into issues that the people faced over 200 years ago before we wrote the Declaration of Independence. Remember the Declaration of Independence, Truman, where it said send out swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance? Exactly. These are tax collectors, county code enforcement, all kinds of things are out there right now. I mean, the county believes they own everything in the county, don't they? You've had that experience, Truman.
Yes, we addressed that in one of our programs here a while back when we were talking about the Mendota case. Now, I don't have that case in front of me. It's back maybe in the briefcase, but it's very stated in there by the court system that the county and jurisdictions cannot tax anything that they don't own. If they don't own it, they can't put a restriction on it or a tax on it. And this is what we did in the Mendota case. We brought this to their attention. The mayor quit. The prosecutor quit. The building inspector was fired, but he eventually came back. So the case was won without actually suing anybody. But when the law was brought to them and said, you can't do this, they backed down. And this is what has to be done, especially in your case, Paul, where they have attacked your property up in the mountains for something that's not related in any way, in my estimation, to your case. But you're trying to fight it within the system. Good luck.
And it certainly impinged my personal life dramatically as well, when I have no access to my home and the equity in my home and my finances, because they've got everything tied up from my parents' estate to my personal estate. Because I stood up. Had I rolled over and just signed over the original agreement, their original request that they sent to me in the mail, maybe that's a case for federal use, using the postage to basically say you're going to sign or we're going to sue you. And that's how it started. Most of the people, I think, in Leisure World literally sign. I said no.
Yeah, well, this was something else I wanted to bring up in reading of your case. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a researcher like Sue Ann is. But I've read enough in it to come to the conclusion that this was an unconscionable contract. Okay?
That I didn't even sign.
Okay. And the thing is, to anybody that wants to go into any of these types of contracts where there's page after page after page of legalese and several corporations that have corporations and this and that. If you don't go in there with counsel that's knowledgeable or become knowledgeable yourself, you are at their mercy. We got a break coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to the commercials, patronize those people, and we shall return.
To enter the 2020 contest.
Turns. The president is losing ground.
Hills.
Trump remains intensely focused.
Valleys.
On his political base.
Death-defying straightaways.
Totally insane.
The race is a marathon, and it happens here. 2020.
Talk Radio 1680 KGED.
Free enterprise society exists to
Somebody, I
educate
think she's
Americans
calling in
about
right
the
now.
importance of the
Picking
U.S.
up the phone, so
Constitution.
let's see
This
how
is
it
the
goes.
formula, if you will, that made this country the greatest country the world has ever seen. We are not supposed to be like the rest of the world. You can get more information at my website. We're also funded by people like you. We have a membership. We can help you with some IRS problems. We also need donations and benefactors to continue this work. So if you want to abolish the income tax, check us out. If you have questions, feel free to contact me. But anyway, thanks for listening.
The following statements may be disturbing or offensive for some audiences. Life begins at the very moment of conception. Every single life is priceless. Mankind is created in the very image of God. I know that the aforementioned statements did not offend you. At least I hope not. But for many in our culture today, they are sadly offensive. I believe that every life conceived should have every opportunity to reach its full potential.
From ooh to aww. Whatever reaction you're looking for this holiday, spread more joy with custom holiday cards, calendars, and photo gifts from Vistaprint. And now you can get special Black Friday prices with 60% off all holiday cards and calendars. Plus save on other memorable photo gifts like canvas prints. So get our Black Friday prices until December 3rd with 60% off holiday cards and photo calendars. Plus great deals on photo gifts at Vistaprint.com. Just enter code Radio60 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, code Radio60.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We have Sue Ann on the telephone, and before I get to her, we'll let you know that Paul Ballard is here, and we are going over his thing. And Sue Ann, do you have the information that will help him in his fight with these people?
Okay. The last letter he got from, and I believe it was from the U.S. Congress, they told him exactly that he is correct, the court was incorrect. And unfortunately, I cannot seem to find that letter at the moment, but I want to go through it and outline all the elements of it, because what you've told him is absolutely true. He has a case, but his case is not in the court, ever. So what you told him is absolutely true, and all he has to do is go through a process of going after each individual, and you give them a notice telling them that they have a liability, and you go after them for the cost that it's already cost you, plus what what you consider they were being liable for outside of what it's cost you. So when you're done, you get this set up. So, and this is what we call common law. Common law is you do a notice of liability, and when you get through with the process, it then means that you are entitled to whatever you claimed that they owe you. And the great part of this notice is that it says that any third party, including attorneys, will cost them $10 million to get in the case. So what you do is you eliminate all attorneys in it. So then all you've got is this individual who is liable to you because they took advantage of you when they didn't have the proper authority to do that.
That's very true, and that's the way it works. That's basically what I did, even though I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I sued the individuals that were being their supposed exercise over me using the law when I was not subject to it, because I didn't have their license. So in the first place, it should have been dismissed, which I requested my attorney on the second trial to do. He refused to get involved and wouldn't do it. So I lost. So that's all right. I learned a good lesson. And all these people in government want is they want your assets. They don't want your body. They want what you got. So if you put yourself in a situation where you don't own anything, nothing's registered in your name to them, you don't have any way for them to get at the money that you've got. There's various ways of handling that. Steve's know how to do that, or knows people that do it. They're called trusts. And they can't penetrate those trusts. Go ahead, Sue.
Well, there is trust, and there are other opportunities besides trust, but trusts are very good. Unfortunately, what they've done is if you've got a trust that has no tax liability, they tell you it's not correct, that it can't be, and you can't get a bank account, because I know I had the same problem, and I have a trust that it was done by someone who was an attorney for the Bushes in Texas, and he put together this trust setup, and it's gone to the Ninth Circuit, and they said it's valid, but the attorneys in California, and you have to fight that issue as well, and I'm not going to go there. But there are other options as well. The idea is you don't want anything in your name. And there was a part I was going to talk about, but now I forgot what it was. I hate it when that happens.
Happens to all of us.
Sue Ann, this is Paul Ballard, and I have a question regarding the direction of which you're recommending that I go to get a remedy, and that is to not be legally involved with or potentially suing the Golden Rain Foundation, Leisure World, or the Seal Beach Mutual Corporations. You want me to sue an individual, is that correct?
Yes, they go to the individual who made the statements for the corporation. You don't care about the corporation. You're after the individual. You don't want to go after the corporation because they get. Well, actually, the corporation. You can't. The reason you can't is because all corporations have to have an attorney, or they can't do anything. But the individual is the one you want to go after, because those people, what they're doing is they're taking the information from an higher up, and a lot of times they really do not know. But it's kind of like the was it the Nuremberg?
The Nuremberg war trials.
Right. And in that, they said that each individual who participated was liable in and of itself, and they didn't have to go after the government or any of the other people, because as an individual, you should know what is correct and what is incorrect.
Now, there isn't any.
Not figure out how to do that.
I can tell you from my own experience when I did this, I sued the actors, is what you call them. They're the ones that are following the orders of the higher-ups.
Okay.
Right.
And when you are in a government situation, the actors, are not given the opportunity to violate the written law. They have to stay within the parameters of what's written, not what somebody says, not what they think. And that's how you go after them. And they got really upset when I sued them. A whole bunch of them. So anyway...
but there's no reason that the Leisure World lawyers
if you would hear me out,
represent.
if you would hear me out on this thing.
All right, I'm sorry.
I sued these people, the people that work for the government in their individual capacity. Okay? When they got the lawsuit, they went screaming to their higher-ups. The state attorney general, because it was the state actors I was suing, said, they didn't sue us. You're on your own. You know how much it costs to hire an attorney to write a brief in opposition to a lawsuit? $10,000. All these people screamed and yelled and hollered. The people here in Fresno County were going to write the motion. Then the city attorney and the county attorney advised me of that in opposition. I said, well, you're spending taxpayers' money without authorization. That's a felony. Now, how far do you want to go? They backed out. Nobody answered the complaint. I won by default. No, they said, I'll go after you. Well, I went after them, threatened them. You go after me and keep harassing me, I'm going to go after your house, your car, your wages, whatever. Haven't heard a thing from them in 10 years.
And you're including the government actors as well as the private corporation actors inside
Absolutely.
Leisure World. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Absolutely.
Including elected officials.
Yes, because corporations are only supposed to be in the U.S. In any land owned and ceded to the United States of America. What the United States is, it's a property manager for the United States of America. So any land that is owned by the United States of America, the United States is doing property management. Well, they've now moved all of their corporations and everything into our land. And that is so wrong. But corporations are not to be in the United States of America. It can be on the United States of America's land, but not for where the people are, because you are the government.
So that's why they changed it to the United States and not the United States of America. The United States is a corporation. The United States of America is a country.
Yeah, the United States is a corporation, but the United States of America is not. But it has to do with the fact that any time that you're dealing with a corporation, they are also liable. That's the reason you have corporations is so that the people can sue them, because they are when they're doing things they're not supposed to do. Well, the thing is that attorneys have figured out how to make it stop, and so you don't want to have any attorneys involved in it. And that's what Truman did, was he got rid of the attorneys because they were using public money for private suits, and you can't do that. And it really makes them livid when they find out that you know more about the law than they do.
Yeah, see, knowledge is power, and the power resides in you, but you have to educate yourself. You can't go to a lawyer or anything else. You can go to the law library and get yourself acclimated to it. Read the law. The law is what? It's words. You have to know the meaning of the words, because they'll change them, even in the statute. They'll say black is white and white is red and so forth and so on. If you don't know that, then you plead or do in your papers what you think the word means instead of what it lawfully and legally means. There's a huge difference there.
Yeah, common use of a word and a legal use of a word are not necessarily the same.
Not necessarily. They're never the same.
Never.
And this is in federal court, not in California Superior
right.
Courts, is that correct?
Yes, sue them in federal court, because that's where your power is.
All right.
That's your power.
I've always suggested to be in federal court, but through civil rights acts. You're saying through a different avenue, but I absolutely, it's the same court that we can get the remedy through.
Yeah, but see, civil rights are rights granted by the government. You have God-given rights, which the Constitution, the generic Constitution, was put in to protect.
And my parents as well. My parents tried to do
well,
this.
We're coming up on another break
Right.
here. I think things are starting to soak in a little bit, maybe.
Thank you.
And Steve, when we get back, cite some of your problems that you've had. Mr. Engineer, take it away.
Deshaun Watson and Houston are coming off a big win over the Colts to take the lead in their division, while New England improved to 10-1 after a win over the Cowboys.
There's one actually
Join
in
us
the
on
Senate.
Sunday Night Football and hear the NFL all season from Westwood One.
Justices, the judges, take me back in their chambers
Have a little talk.
and for a little talk, and I didn't budge. Here it is.
Free Enterprise Society
when
exists
they
to
didn't
educate
answer the
Americans
complaint,
about the
I
importance
won
of
by
the U.S.
default.
Constitution. This
And I
is the
still got the
formula, if you will,
defaults.
that
They're
made
gonna
this
harass
country the
me. I'll
greatest country the
harass
world's
them
ever
back
seen.
more.
We're not supposed to be like the rest of the world. You can get more information at my website. We're also funded by people like you. We have a membership. We can help you with some IRS problems. We also need donations and benefactors to continue this work. So if you want to abolish the income tax, check us out. If you have questions, feel free to contact me. But anyway, thanks for listening.
This is a national healthcare alert from the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one has diabetes, listen closely. Now, regardless of your age, if you have insurance, you may qualify to receive diabetic testing supplies with little to no out-of-pocket cost. Get free delivery, free information, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers for free. Call the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline now for details. Toll free at this number. But wait, there's more. If you call right now, you could get a meter upgrade. In addition, we'll give you a free pair of diabetic socks as our special gift to you. Regardless of your age, if you suffer with diabetes and have insurance, you may qualify to get free delivery of your supplies.
800-439-7409, 800-439-7409, 800-439-7409. That's 800-439-7409.
Welcome back to Personalities in the News. I'm Truman Sigler, along with my guest Paul Ballard and our co-host Steve Hempley and Sue Ann Caesar. Steve, do you want to comment on some of the legal things that you've been into?
Well, we at Free Enterprise Society, we do use attorneys quite a bit. In my own situation, the Justice Department doesn't really like what I do in educating people about the Constitution. They did sue me once. And what's interesting about that, I mean, this guy was probably around my age. He flew out from Washington, D.C. all the way to California to be in court with me, against me. But, you know, we met at a restaurant there and had coffee. I mean, he seemed like all the time we were together, like a reasonable guy, somebody I might go fishing with, you know. But when he files paperwork, it's like, my God, it's the devil's own son he's attacking here. I mean, there was nothing in there that was true in the complaints that he would file in the court. And, you know, I would point that out to the judge, and it didn't make any difference to him. But I did get the complaint. We went in with a motion. I didn't even have an attorney at this point. We just went in under certain provisions of the attorney, and we did get that thing dismissed. And he just, you know, his comment was, you know, he didn't do very well. He went and tried to refile the complaint later. But the thing is, the briefs, you can't look at a brief and expect really to believe very many of the accusations in these kind of complaints. The attorneys is what, you know, there's a couple problems here, but most of it comes right back to the attorneys themselves. I mean, lawyers are really low on the totem pole as far as honesty and ethics go in the public's opinion. You probably know that. They're even higher, but they are higher than congressmen or car salespeople. And I just noticed, I was looking at this poll here from Gallup, but one thing missing on here was tax collectors. I think that would be really on the bottom, or maybe they had no points whatsoever. But attorneys are like 3% where people think they're really honest, which is pretty sad. And but they also, most of our elected officials, they write the laws, and the laws have to be understandable. There are laws in regards to this, and you know, Sue Ann is good at looking at these things, looking at every word. And you know, a lot of attorneys, some attorneys do that, legal researchers, but still, a law passed by Congress that you guys are talking about has to be read by the average citizen. And very little of what Congress does today can be read by the average citizen. Most of these bills, some of them are thousands of pages. You see that all the time now, Truman.
Yeah, but they have to pass it so they can read it.
Yeah, the Congress doesn't. These congressmen don't even read it. I think, this is part of the problem. If a congressman votes for a bill in favor of a bill that he hasn't read, that should be in itself a crime. Because they affect a lot of people. That healthcare destroyed our healthcare system, in my opinion. And I don't, even if we corrected all those problems and go back to where it was, it would take decades maybe to get it fixed. But my experience with attorneys is they have an arrogance issue, many of them, to sit there and talk to them like Sue Ann would, or a researcher that we have, and say, well, maybe we should look at this. They're in this box that they learn in school, and they know everything. This is to me, one of the bigger issues. They don't go outside the box. Sue Ann doesn't. She has no box. She just looks at the law and lets it take it where she wants to go. But attorneys don't know everything. This is what they think. A lot of them, they think they're, unapproachable. They talk in words that most people don't understand, and they think even if they don't know what they're talking about, they think the American, people they're talking to will never know that they are not knowledgeable. But let's take an example of somebody who hires a $500,000 attorney. Why do you pay that much for an attorney, Truman? Any idea?
I've never had that kind of money to pay one. I wouldn't if I had it, but they're supposed to know the law and give you good legal advice. You would hire a name brand attorney because he wins cases, right? That's correct.
So if you hire a lesser than a name brand attorney for a lot less, who's never won a case, is there a question of competence? If this guy can win and you can't, you're incompetent. And that is these are ways that you can get out of some of these trials. If an attorney is proven to be incompetent, that's one of the things that, and I think a lot of them are. In tax cases, Free Enterprise Society, we had a lot of tax cases. We won a lot of them against the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board. But the attorneys, a lot of attorneys want to handle the cases for us, but most of them will tell us we're going to lose. They're not competent. Or, we can win, but I've never won one before. I never handled one. Well, they're still incompetent. You see, so we've had good luck with attorneys. There's a lot of attorneys, and I think we still have the best legal system in this country. But you kind of pointed out, there's a difference between some people that are trying to do something good with the law and then people that are not. And you call them lawyers. John Castle, that this program is based on, his name. Remember his title for him was Shyster, and for most judges it was Black Robe of Dishonor. And he's really right, because when you get an average person, and the best legislators I've ever seen are people that are not attorneys. Even Trump, he's not an attorney, and I can relate to him. He could come Ohio for dinner, probably at my place, and be almost perfectly normal, whereas a lot of these guys couldn't be. So Ron Paul was not an attorney. He was a doctor, a very good congressman, I thought. So
yes,
those kind of things.
And his son is kind of following in his footsteps.
Steve,
they've read the Constitution. I think most legislators have never read the Constitution. They take an oath to defend with their life this document, which, if you ask them about it, I never read that.
Yeah, they don't know anything about it.
Steve, one of the things, too, is I actually read all the documents from the various lawsuits I've been involved with since unfortunately, since I've been involved with Leisure World. I've read their documents. I don't see them reading them. That's one of the things I want to absolutely agree with you on. In fact, I even saw them file just papers. They had nothing to do with anything. Just papers were filed just to make these huge briefs that had nothing to do with our case at all. That was being handled just to appear as, well, we filed 1,000 pages and you've only filed 300, therefore we win.
That's called intimidation. And also, if you want to get legal about it, lack of notice, lack of due process. And when you go into their court system, you go in and they say, well, you have to have a lawyer because you're incompetent and only a lawyer can speak to you. You don't know the law. Well, turn the tables on them and you go on the offense, which I wish Trump would do. He's starting to look into it a little bit. But if you're on the offense, you've got them behind the 8 ball. But you have to be sure that you have your status correct. You can't be in their system. If you claim the 14th Amendment and a few other things, you are in their system. And that's what you wanted to do.
I was curious after being in court for years and years and seeing some shenanigans going on, why the judges, because the lawyers in front of them practicing on the bench are sworn officers of the court, and when they get caught, shall we say, fudging, why nothing happens to them when it certainly happens to us with a parking meter? The little red flag goes up. Man, we're slammed down. How come the inside judicial system isn't slamming the lying lawyers? And
follow the money, and you'll find out why. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Well, I do want to encourage people, if they have any comments on this subject, because they can call in at 442-1680. We haven't really put that number out much, but we want to get some callers involved.
Well, what is
and this
that
idea
area
of
code?
Incompetent lawyers, I think, is going to be interest people.
What is the area code for that number, Steve?
At 559.
Thank you.
Yeah, 559-442-1680. Talk Radio.
We have a few minutes left if somebody wants to call in, but and I also encourage them to go to freeenterprisesociety.com. You can get a lot of information on there on the Constitution and the income tax, because the income tax has got to go. I mean, it is completely unconstitutional from a lot of different perspectives, in my view. So
it's one of the 10 planks.
Well, I found something rather amazing when I'm typing my own briefs on the third trial, and I couldn't afford a lawyer for the third trial, and I'm reading the briefs and typing my responses, and the trial is moving fast because they don't want to give me the time to do this. But I found the opposing firm, the Leisure World representative firm, to switch documents on me one day and give me something different than they submitted into the court. Now, I'm a voracious reader, and I can see things like that. And when I brought this to the judge's attention, I expected something to happen. And instead, we both got a finger waving by the judge if he doesn't want to see any of this ever happening again, or he'll do something. And he goes, it was quite surprising. It was as if he himself had caught them, and he didn't. I did. I'm the one trying to defend myself against these ridiculous charges, civil charges, and the judge wasn't doing anything. Now, this judge was a political appointee. I don't know if that has anything to do with it versus an elected judge. I'm not sure. But it was quite shocking that it was okay for the judge, for the attorneys to submit different documents to myself and the court. And I find that just such a vile abuse of the law.
Well,
if you did that, things would have turned out a little different.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Sue Ann, you want to say something?
Yes. When you talk about judges, not one of those judges is an actual judge. They're just law administrators or commissioners. What does a commissioner get?
Well, a commissioner can only follow what's written down. He can't make a decision, actually.
No, what does he get? If you're a commissioner, what do you get?
Yeah.
A commission.
That's right.
So they're looking for their commission, and they will follow whatever gives them a higher commission.
Well,
that is so important.
Well, but in this case, though, it was Commissioner Luehi, the first judge, who did her work and understood the law and researched it, and it was the commissioner that ruled in my favor.
But what's the first thing I opened the program with? You're in their
system,
and you are not going to win in their system. You have to go on the offense and make them prove what it is. You don't have to prove your innocence. They have to prove you're guilty.
Well, this is neither civil. This is civil. So this is civil. So guilty and innocent are not issues. These are civil matters. But yes.
Doesn't matter. It's still the same way.
Yes.
They have to prove, and the court says they have to prove. A lot of court cases out there say it is up to the government or the corporation to prove you are the one they're supposed to be going after. If they can't prove it, they can't go any further. And what they're doing is they're going around the bend because you don't know. that they have to first prove it.
Well, they weren't able to do it at the end, Sue Ann. The only way that they were managed to take the property from us was by claiming California law, landlord-tenant law.
We're going to have to wrap it up. Like I said at the opening gambit here, this could go on for hours and hours, and it really should. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you.
Time to wrap up. Our time is up for the evening. Thanks to Paul and Steve and Sue for their views and opinions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in next week, same time and stations. Talk Radio 1680 AM, TV channel 32.3. Truman Sigler for Personalities of the News. Good night.
Good night.
Are the mics still hot?
Pull the plug. Pull the plug. Is it all off?
Steve, you still on?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are the mics still hot and going out like they were a couple of weeks ago?
The mic's off.
Okay. Well, we can engage in a conversation here if the mics are off. So.
All right. I'm sort of getting the direction of what you're suggesting, and that's sue them independently. I don't know whether one at a time or collectively at a time. Is this Linda Stone who signed the lawsuit, who then says she didn't file it? I don't know who all the players are, and one of the reasons why I didn't want to ever be suing them originally, or DLA Piper, is because under the corporate structure.
You know who the players are because they signed their documents.
Absolutely.
And these letters, from the assessor's office.
They're all players. If they signed the document and got their name on it, they are a player.
Do you sue them?
Absolutely. They're an actor.
They'll claim immunity that they don't have, and you fall for it. You're in their system.
No, I'm asking you a question. Do I do 27 lawsuits or one with 27 actors?
How many ever you have to sue, that's up to you. All you do is get a few of them, then it gets around. And if you don't, I'll take this off now, bro. Steve's off. If you don't have any assets that they can get.
No, I'm upside down at this point.
You know you're not upside down. You got things in your name.
No, well, yeah, but their judgment is more than that value.
They're still going to go after it, and you're still into their system.
I see.
Absolutely.
You have a bank account?
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, actually,
I don't either.
Who's your trustee?
I'm the trustee.
That's the problem. You can't be the trustee and the owner of the trust at the same time. All you can be is a manager. Managers are not subject to all this stuff. And you've got to get out of these statutory trusts, the ones that lawyers write and the ones that bankers write. They're in the system.
Right.
And they don't like it when you do it outside of their
It's
system.
set up to rape you, not protect you.
All right.
Absolutely.
In that particular case, do I dare say that this Thomas L. McKenzie law firm that writes these specialist trusts for Leisure World has got a problem because
they're writing it within their system and they're protecting their client using the written law, which is not a law really. It's I can't think of the words right now. They're failing me like my voice is. But it takes a lot of years. It took me 7 years to get out of the system. I own nothing. Nothing.
That's a lot of way a lot of people in Mariposa.
Me too.
Didn't want to particularly live that way, and people asked me when I had two cell phones, they said, "You have two social security numbers too?"
No, that's still in their system.
And I said, "No,
you're in their system. You can't be both places. Read the Bible."
It's been a long time.
Okay, but you can't be in two jurisdictions at the same time. It's that simple. It's that simple. Everything is very, very simple. Lawyers make it complex. And they suck you into the system and make you think you have to do it, and you just, like everybody else, you follow along willy-nilly.
Well, no, I fought from day one, and they didn't expect this.
Oh, no. In their system, he did.
You start your education and find out who you are, where you belong,
Can I sue them for just made-up dollar amounts? What do I sue them for?
Go high. You can always back down.
Okay.
Like a car salesman, shoot you a high figure, you can always beat him down.
Now, I have a question then. Is it only for their personal assets, or does it go into not the corporate side of things?
You sue them personally. You can't go after the corporation.
Okay. So the corporation's got the money.
Am I losing all of you?
The land.
Yeah, I understand. That's why you want to get out of it.
No, I mean all the Leisure World land. The
Yeah,
corporations
that's what I'm
over
saying.
that.
You want to get out of it.
Get out of that. I sue
Gentlemen?
Linda Stone
The whole thing, to my estimation, was the fact when your parents signed that agreement with them without counsel.
Well, and
Not lawyer, counsel.
Without everybody, right? Everybody does, and in fact,
No, everybody doesn't do it.
well, no, everybody that lives in
Not
Leisure World will
everybody.
sign that damn thing.
Right, the legal world will tell you you're obligated and you're to do this. You can't believe it.
And this is what I had to be very nice with this attorney.
Truman?
that lives in there. It's like,
Can you hear me?
Signed this thing? Kind of an attorney are you?
Truman?
Well, he's now learned because he didn't bother to read it. Nobody read this thing. Apparently, I'm one of the first few people to ever read the Leisure World
Truman.
documents.
I would agree with that.
Truman.
And it's now when you say it's unconscionable, shouldn't
Okay,
shouldn't
I'm
that contract
hanging
be
up.
tossed?
It's an unconscionable contract that you can't fight within their system.
Oh, it's unconscionable, but still.
That's right, because
valid.
the judges will honor it. This time. Yes. Wants to get involved. We talk to her.
I would love to.
Clearer than I am. That's where we are. Fact of life.
It's an unconscionable contract.
The driver's license is an unconscionable contract.
Well, let's not go everywhere. Let's just focus with this one because I know that people can argue on
It's
endlessly.
all the same. Same thread throughout all of this stuff. That's what most people don't hear. It's different. Your status, your person, obey law. You gotta get yourself in a status of a constitutional.
Well, but the point is, I did obey their law. That's what I did.
I know, then that's the
And then they still screwed me.
That's right. They will every time.
Well,
It's designed to screw you.
do I dare it? Truman, is it just my luck in life that my number came up as the lottery, or is that this is really a large criminal enterprise and they look
There you go.
they're looking